everyone. It's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. So it's been crazy busy here. I am way behind on my podcast chats. Not that long ago, we had Cliff over at the Guild of Professional Sharpeners, and I've been wanting to talk about that. So it's time to get that done. I want to get that out there before my thoughts start leaving my brain and I forget what I wanted to talk about there. There was a lot of things that came up with that meeting that very much clarified things for me. I always love when Cliff comes in because, one, it's nice to see, somebody else that's very successful doing knife sharpening, but who's also doing it very different than me. And it gives me a good way to be like, do I want to be doing what he's doing, or am I happy with doing what I'm doing? I think that's one of the most important things about sharpening. And I think it's one of the most important things if you're going to get into this business. I think the very first thing, that's one of the most important things that you want to focus on. Granted, it can change because it even changed for me. And that was one of the great things of having Cliff was we got to see how much it's changed for Cliff over time. One of the best things you can do is try and find out who your audience is, and most importantly, how do you want to operate your sharpening business? Because there's lots of different ways of doing this, but it's really, I think, one of the most important factors to figure out quickly is how do you want to do this? And the other thing I did after the guild meeting was I followed up with a few people that I've been working closely with, helping them with their businesses. That's been going on for quite some time. And I have, a select group of people that pretty regularly reach out to me, and a lot of them follow my recommendations, and some of them almost mimic what I do exactly. So I like to see also, for those who are following what I do, what's being successful for them. And I also like to see when they start modifying it too and making it their own, which is also very cool, because I think that's an important thing too. You don't want to necessarily want to follow what somebody else is doing 100%, because you're going to know your area, you're going to know where you live and what's popular and what might be needed where you are way better than I am. So what I have going here in Alexandria, Virginia, may be very different than someone who's, in Idaho or, in Wisconsin or down in Florida. We all have different things that go on with our communities, our areas, the types of area that we live in. If you live in a city, if you live close to a city, if you live in a very rural area, if you live in an incredibly rural area where you don't have that many neighbors close by, you got to take all those factors into consideration when you are starting your sharpening business. I will say this, here were a couple things that it really stuck with me from Cliff that did make me happy, but that I don't do the same as Cliff, but I wasn't, disappointed that I'm not doing it, because there's certain things I don't want to do. I have at times, and there have been times where I thought, should I have a storefront? Should I get a retail space somewhere? And I've always avoided doing that. It was something I looked at a lot when I was at the old shop at my old house before I moved, because I had such little space there, and I had a really nice shopping center where the little hardware store that recommends me all the time is right in there. We just got a brand new butcher that just went in there called The Cut. Fantastic butcher that my wife's been shopping there, and the stuff has been great. I thought maybe I could go in there, because they have some really poor retail locations in the back of that building, which I'm sure probably wouldn't cost that much in rent, because they're not getting a whole lot of walk-by traffic. But that for me wouldn't be a big concern, because I kind of already have a pretty well-established clientele that know of me. And then if I was right there in that shopping center, it would have been an option. I still was like, you know what? I also like the fact that I don't have rent at all. And that's always kind of stuck with me, even listening to Ryan from District Cutlery when we had him on, and he talked about, how they have to sell knives, and they sell a lot of retail knives, and they, import knives from Japan because it pays the rent. Because Ryan's in Union Station. I mean, imagine the cost of rent there. It's got to be astronomical. And he pretty much told us, like, without selling knives, we could not afford to be here. Cliff also was like, hey, selling knives, I'm doing really well on that, but it also requires selling knives. So it's times where you're going to have to get up, stop sharpening, and go sell somebody a knife, which, depending on your retail location and if you have a lot of foot traffic, that might even require an employee or a family member or somebody to help you do that. And it's always just been something that really didn't interest me. I really don't want to do the retail. I don't want to sell knives. I don't want to have rent. But one thing that really jumped out to me right away was when Cliff started talking about what a good day was. And he was very forthcoming with us. And he said, hey, if I do $500 in sharpening, that's a good day. If I do this many dollars in retail sales, that's a good day. What was really cool was that what Cliff considers a good day and what I consider a good day are almost exactly the same numbers. And I don't have rent. And I'm also not selling retail other than some laser engraving stuff. But that's where one of the places where we went in very different direction to separate himself. I guess we're not even really, I guess that's not the correct word, but Cliff decided to do retail as an add-on to his business, which is great. And it totally makes complete sense. As same with Ryan, who works for District Cutlery. It totally makes sense to sell knives. For me, though, who works out of a shop in my house, which is basically an oversized 2-car garage, with all the gear that I have, I don't even know where I would put retail items for sale, because I'm already using the space that I got between the entire row of lasers and then all of the sharpening gear. I really just don't have the interest, and I also don't have the same exact setup I had at my old shop. So it might have been different if my garage doors had a front door, because you can get really cool garage doors that are insulated that even have a door built into them. If my garage doors had a separate door where customers could have come and gone through there. My old shop, even though it was small, the one thing that was really cool is the shop had its own door on the front of the house, which was really nice. So I had the garage door, but then next to it was an actual regular door that went right into the shop. Wasn't access to any other parts of the house. It was just only the shop. That's the only thing that I miss at all. But again, it has not been an issue. It's very close for me. The door that you see behind me, I walk out that door, I go out and around the corner, and I'm right where my drop-off boxes are. But it's okay, because the majority of my customers, other than the laser engraving, just need to drop stuff off in the boxes and pick stuff up. So they don't really need to have a ton of interaction with me. But I just like Cliff, I love talking to my clients, and I go out and I talk to them, and I invite them in regularly too, so that they come in the shop, they hang out, they talk. I try to make myself very available, and I show them things if they got questions. They got questions about sharpening, honing, whatever. I do all that. I love interacting with my clients. It's something I have always enjoyed about doing this business. Now, where I would say I'm very different is in kind of two areas. So one, if we're going to talk just the knife sharpening, and it's also just kind of a different mindset too. If you know Cliff's story, Cliff started out as a mobile. He was a mobile, like, handyman guy that was all over I think he's on Maui. And then when he got into doing the knife stuff, he was doing a lot of farmers markets and that kind of stuff. And he was working out of his house, but he did a lot of mobile stuff. And I never went the mobile route. I was going to in the very beginning, very quickly decided that that was not what I wanted to do and that I just wanted to work out of my own shop. I fortunately also realized very quickly that I had plenty of business, that people were very willing to come to me, and that I didn't need to go to people. And that may not be the case for everybody. Some of you, because of where you live, some of you may need to go out there and do that kind of stuff and do those things that like Cliff did in the beginning. Now, he also has a very big following now, and he probably wouldn't have to do that if he had, if he had stopped his mobile stuff and just went to working in his house. And he even said, the Guild of Sharpeners meeting, he even said that if he hadn't opened the retail, he probably would have started just doing it out of his house, maybe something similar to like what I do. That's my point there is, the quicker you figure that out, the better. But let me get back to what I was saying. So what really makes us different is I have never been under the gun kind of sharpening. I don't do events. I'm not interested in them. I don't do farmers markets. I'm not interested in them. I don't go to restaurants or places that want me to come in and pack up my gear and go sharpen. I'm not interested in it. And I'm very lucky that I don't need to do that. I don't want to say I won't do something in a rush. I will. But in the very beginning, and let's go back like all the way the very, very, very beginning, when I very first started sharpening, my confidence level wasn't what it is today. The other reason I didn't want to do that was because, when I was learning and it was tough in the beginning, I didn't like the pressure of, someone's waiting or coming back in 5 minutes for their knives and they're not done, or I'm not happy with the level that this knife is at. And I just never wanted to be like zip, 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 and it be done, because it just didn't appeal to me. And I also didn't like the pressure. I have always loved sharpening, almost like the zen of it. Like I enjoy sharpening. I enjoy working on things, but I also really enjoy making things look really nice, really exceptional. That is not the case for all sharpening in it. And that's not a knock on other forms of sharpening, because some people just aren't looking for that. So if a person's going to a farmer's market and dropping their knives off and expecting them back in 25 minutes, they're not expecting their knives to be polished. They're probably not expecting any repairs or anything other than that knife being sharpened to a decent level of sharpness when they get it back. That's probably their only expectation. I have always wanted my service to be a lot more than that. So that's why I do the radial disc polishing. That's why I try and give things back to people. If you look at my reviews, and last count, I was over 275 5-star reviews with never under a 5-star review. You can read through them and you'll see like people are blown away with how they come back. You regularly see my knives came back. They looked brand new. My 30-year-old knives are sharper now than they've ever been. That's always what I wanted to provide. I've always wanted to provide not just a good sharpening, not just a fast sharpening. In fact, I don't even care about it being fast. You go on my website, it says your knives are going to be here from 3 to 5 days. Can be longer when I got even more work in here. I don't rush people's work through. Now, I will say this. As time went on, and there did become a point where my confidence level was so good that I didn't mind being under pressure. And that was like a big deal too, because I remember when that happened. I remember the time like somebody came by and was like, "Hey, I need this right away. Can you sharpen it right now?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I did it. But in the very beginning, I truly wanted nothing to do with that. And I still stick by, if someone wants something immediately, it's got to be like 1 or 2 items. You need 1 or 2 things sharpened, and I'll do it right away. And we're talking kitchen knives. If I'm not going to do it for any of the other stuff that I do, I don't do on a right away basis. Like you drop it off, I text you when it's ready and you come get it. I think what my customers have grown to learn and accept is that they're not just getting the farmer's market sharpening, they're getting an exceptional level of sharpening, an exceptional amount of detail that's been put into that knife. And that's my goal. And that's always been what I like to provide. And that's how I do my service. So and there came a point too where I was like, I still want to separate myself from everyone. I still want to do something different than everybody else is doing. And that's where the laser engraving came in for me. So because I wanted to do more than just sharpening, I could only do sharpening, but I wanted to do something more than that. I wanted to do something that was a bit creative because I like doing that. I like making things. I like being creative. I like designing stuff. I've always been super into photography, which I've mentioned many times. The laser engraving gave me an outlet for some of that stuff too. And that's been kind of cool. And now the most recent thing, if you're caught up to date on my latest videos, you know that I added a 3D printer to my shop, which was something I got way back in December, just never got around to doing it. But I had been keeping my eye on them for a long time. Actually, ever since when Creality came to me about doing the laser review for the Creality Falcon that they sent me, oh gosh, it's probably getting close to 2.5 or 3 years ago. I originally thought they were going to contact me about a 3D printer. And because that was, at the time, that was all I knew them for. I didn't even know that they had made lasers. I was kind of excited that they wanted to send me the laser. So I thought that was really cool. I really was like, oh, okay. I didn't know you guys made lasers. So that was kind of fun. But that's how I got into the laser engraving. So the laser engraving for me was my way to separate myself from others. Some of you guys are doing that. Some of you guys are following that, which I think is awesome. And I think it's cool. And it just goes so well. I actually just got a text today that I just opened up. Tomorrow I have a client coming by. She's dropping off, I think it's about 7 knives, probably for a wedding or something. She wants initials put on 7 Japanese knives that they bought. And I get the feeling it's probably a wedding gift. That's one thing I get a lot of. It's like groomsmen and bridesmaids gifts. Not an uncommon thing, but one that has gone really well with what I do, besides also when chefs come in, seeing if they want their knives engraved and that kind of stuff. There just is really no end to the engraving. And then the other thing that's always been really cool too, which I've shown in a lot of the videos, is it's also been a great outlet for me to do my own advertising. You know, the most recent thing is I've switched over to using these credit card size bottle openers that I'm putting my business card basically on, and everybody that's knives leaves here gets one of those. That's their parting gift. They cost me about 39 cents, and I think it's totally worth it. And everyone's been like, oh wow, that's so cool. You know, that's kind of my story. And that's why I enjoyed. I love hearing what Cliff did. But for me, it also was like, I'm on the right path. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I don't want employees. I don't want a retail location. Like I said, that is not a knock on anybody that decides to take that path. That's one thing I love about sharpening, is that we can all do it differently. And here's another example of that. So I said I talked to one of the people that I've been working with and helping. So there's a guy named Vinny. Vinny goes by the Knife Guy Reno, I think it is. He even started a YouTube channel. I was helping Vinny a lot, and especially in the very beginning when he was getting started. A lot of phone calls. You know, it was not uncommon that I heard from Vinny on a very, very regular basis. And he's a young guy. He's a full-time fireman. He basically kind of followed my model to almost to a T. Got a lot of the same gear. He's sharpening on a Toolker. Then I didn't hear from Vinny for a while, which is kind of good too, because there comes a point where sometimes when you're helping somebody out, you gotta kind of give them a little push sometimes to be like, okay, it's time to run on your own. And figure some things out, you know, because you will get some people that will, how can I put this? You will get some people that almost get to a point where they need too much help. And you want to make sure that, you know, They got to learn to fly on their own. They got to learn and figure some of these things out. As those of us out there that love to help people get into sharpening and do this stuff, you also got to put the time in. You also got to make mistakes. You got to go, we all go through that. And if you're going to get from a good sharpener to great to exceptional, all of it's a learning curve. And it's, learning all the different machines you're using, practicing, making mistakes and going back and fixing them. Hopefully not making any major mistakes that cost you money or any screw ups. Fortunately I have never had one on a knife, which is great. I have had plenty of screw ups laser engraving. I don't care. Like, that's fine because I've worked that into my business. I do a type of laser engraving, just to touch on that. I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I do a type of laser engraving that would be considered what they call customer centric. So customers bring me things and they want them laser engraved. A lot of laser engravers out there only want to sell you what they only want to engrave what they sell. That's because they've tested it and they know all the settings for those things. And if you went into them and said, hey, I want this cup engraved, a lot of them are going to be like, nope, we only engrave what we do. And then the other one would be product centric, where they're engraving particular products and selling them. And that's a lot of the stuff you see like on Etsy. Interested me zero. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with Etsy, selling on anything like that. Had zero interest in it. I do keep a very small amount of stuff in my shop that I know people generally look for or that go really well with what I do. So I have very nice cutting boards that I get that I can engrave. And I also have some tumblers from Yeti because inevitably someone's always looking for, a retirement gift or this or that or something to go on a Yeti. So I have a very small selection of Yetis, not many. I have 4 or 5 here out of a convenience thing because I basically send them to my local hardware store who's a Yeti dealer, because the beautiful thing about Yeti, the prices are the same across the board. So it doesn't matter if you buy it on Amazon or a Yeti dealer, they make everybody sell stuff for the same price, unless you're getting it from like a discount place. Then otherwise, it's going to be the same price. So I do keep a small supply of things just in case. And you just never know what you're going to get. And some things don't work out. And that's important too. I had one the other day. I had the guy sign a waiver because I didn't think it was going to work. He wanted me to try it and it didn't work. But he came in with this teardrop urn that was for his daughter who had just passed, and he had a whole bunch of stuff he wanted engraved on there, and I told him straight up, I don't think it's gonna work. I said, I think the laser is gonna shatter the paint that's on here. I think it's gonna crack and it's just gonna come right off. And he's like, oh, I seen a bunch of these that were engraved, and he showed me some pictures, and I explained to him like the differences and why I didn't think it would work. Now, if I had the Com Marker UV laser, I probably could have done it, but I don't have that. But it's the one thing I have had my eye on is the Com Marker UV laser. That thing can engrave all kinds of stuff because it's called a cold laser and it doesn't heat up the surfaces, and it's doing plastics and things that you can't normally do with a laser. This thing can do, but I don't own one of those. But Com Marker, if you want to send me one, I would love to test it out. It's just one of those things you have to be aware of. So I explained that to him. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I don't believe I'll be able to get this job done, but I would be happy to, if he really wanted me to. He said he would order another one if it got destroyed. I said, you know what, let me test it at a small spot. And I did, and it did exactly what I thought it would do. The paint just literally went flying off in a chip. If we had engraved all the things that he had wanted on this urn, it would have just completely come apart. Wouldn't have worked. He was totally cool with it. I said, it's not going to work. When he came back, I showed him why it wouldn't work. I even engraved a small little heart plate for him and put like his daughter's name or date of birth and everything on there, so he would have something to put on it on the meantime. But it was just one of those things that I couldn't do. But that's been the most tricky area, but it's given me a very good chance to always work on my business skills. Talking with customers is the laser engraving, because it's a lot more involved. You need information. You have to talk to them. You know, people always tell you they don't know what they want, but then you find out they have a very good idea in their head what they want or how they want it done, and they don't always put it down on paper. So you know, you need to talk to them about font, you need to talk to them about placement, size, and all the things that go into a laser engraving project so that they're getting what they want. It's important stuff. And for me, it's been a whole lot of fun and I love doing it. And it, like I said, it has been the one thing that I have made a couple mistakes on. And when it's another thing where I don't like to rush jobs and I try very hard not to. If I don't think I can do it, I am very straight and upfront with a person. If it's not something that I'm 100% confident on, I let them know that up front. I do have waivers for things when people bring in a one of a kind thing that, you know, if they're going to insist that it gets done, if it doesn't come out to their desires legally, it protects me from being sued over destroying their item. But everyone's been really pretty cool with that, you know, and for the most part. And if it was even questionable or if it was something of such high value, I would probably just turn it away. I'm not going to risk my business over, you know, over something that's just not worth, you know, making a $25 on an engraving or more, depending on how, you know, involved it is. But that's, you know, that's the engraving side of the business. And I guess my point is that, you know, one of the things I love about being a guild member too, is that it does give me a good opportunity as kind of a sounding board and a mirror to take a look and be like, hey, here's what I'm doing. What's everybody else doing? And is that good? Am I happy with that? Do I want to make changes to it? Do I want to add any new things in here? Do I want to do anything differently? And so far I've come up with no. I love that I work Monday, Tuesday. I take every Wednesday off. I work Thursday, Friday. I work Saturday till 1 o'clock in the afternoon from 9 to 1. I take every Sunday off. That's my schedule. I don't deviate from it. My work is fairly steady. My income is fairly steady. Very happy with the amount of money that's coming in from doing both of these services to my community. And at this point, I have no desire to change it. I hope you guys can figure out for yourselves exactly where you want to be. Oh, I know what I did. I kind of... Sorry, I'm going to go back to one thing here. So I was talking about Vinny. I also heard from another person. So it was funny, a few months back, I would every once in a while check in on Vinny's YouTube. And then I ran across another sharpener who has written me a few times, asked some questions, sent me stuff. And he's also, I don't know what it is with the Nevada guys. I seem to have that market for trainees, for people. But there was another sharpener out there. And it was kind of funny because he was... In one of his videos, he's like, oh, I want to thank Vinny, the knife guy, Vinny in Nevada. He helped me, you know, get started. I'm thinking, oh, well, that's funny. Wait a minute. I trained Vinny. He's already training people? I'm like, my God, Vinny, what's going on? So I knew I had to check in with Vinny at some point. So I did check in with him. It was weird because it was just out of coincidence. He finally texted me. So I went several months without hearing from him. And then I picked up the phone and gave him a call and was like, hey, you know, I was thinking about you the other day because we had the guild meeting and I hadn't heard from you and I just wanted to, you know, see how you're doing. And he told me, you know, he's doing great. He's very busy. He's doing all kinds of sharpening. And I took a little time and checked out some of his YouTube stuff. And I'm happy to see, like, he does a lot of what I do, but he also does his own thing. So Vinny goes, like, every so often he goes into town and he will work on location. He you know, he'll bring one of his toolkers in, and he had a video of him set up on a little like restaurant cart that they gave him to work on, and he was in there sharpening the knives for this restaurant, and good for him, man. And I thought that was awesome. It goes to my point of saying, totally fine with me if you watch what I do and you copy what I do exactly, and that works for you. But don't be afraid to go do your own thing. And I thought it was awesome that Vinny, like 90% of the time, he's working out of his own shop in his house like me. But he just said, you know what? I'm going to go in and do a couple restaurants and hotels. And And he's out there in Nevada where there's a lot of that probably needed. And I was happy to see him doing that and not being afraid to be like, no, I got to do exactly what Paul's doing. No, you don't got to do exactly what I'm doing. Go do your own thing too. Learn from me, take what you like, what you don't like that I do. If you don't like that I don't go and do restaurants and you're like, hey, I don't want to miss out on that money, go do it. It's great. So it's okay to do both. Do your own thing, do a little bit of what somebody else does. We all do it. Just like, recently, if you guys haven't seen it, I added a video. I was getting a ton of questions from people about Cliff's serration stuff. And I had mentioned, I did a video called Cliff versus Paul, a battle of the serrations, because I got so many emails about it and people asking it. It was just meant to be funny. Cliff and I get along fantastically. We do things very differently, but some things we do very, very much the same. So there's a lot of things we do the same, and then there's some things we do very differently. And I had started trying to do serrated knife refurbishing even before Cliff was selling the wheels or even started doing it at all. I probably maybe 2 years before Cliff ever even put any of that stuff out, I tried doing it with very similar stuff, not his wheels. I got them from a place called Jade Carver. I tried using arbor adapters and different things. I just wasn't happy with it. I tried putting it on a Tormac. I mean, you name it. I tried it on everything. I tried it on a Kansu motor like we use for the Harbor Freight conversions. They just wobbled too much. I wasn't happy with them. I couldn't get them to run the way I wanted. So I just kind of abandoned the whole thing. And that was where I came up with my split belt method, which I still absolutely love. But basically what had happened was Cliff came out with a video, and in the video he had mentioned, yes, you can sharpen a serrated knife basically with a split belt. That will work. Yes, it will work well. But he showed a serrated knife that basically someone had like taken through different sharpeners or ground with a belt flat, and the serrations were almost gone or like half gone. And yes, my method for sharpening serrated knives is not going to restore a knife that the serrations are gone. And that was never my intention. And that was all Cliff had said. But, some people are like, oh, Cliff was criticizing you. And I went and watched the video. I go, Cliff and I are in 100% agreement. Like, he's right. What I'm doing is not going to restore a scallop that has been ground down or improperly sharpened by somebody, or that somebody put through a pull-through sharpener and just messed it up. You're not going to be able to refurbish that scallop with a split belt. But the beauty of like the split belt method, in my opinion, is that, the majority of serrated knives that I see, at least in my area, don't need refurbishing. I would say maybe one in every 10 might, you definitely see them. That's for sure. And my method will still resharpen them very well. But when those serration starts to go, or if they're really been ground down, which we all see those knives, the only way you're going to restore that is to cut new serrations into it. So many people bombarded me with it. I was like, all right, I'm going to revisit this. Cliff says it's good. I'm going to revisit it. I'm going to see if I can get it to work. And I did a video on it. I went and tried it, and it worked, and I the one thing I did differently that I hadn't done before was I used some spherical washers that are used for CBN wheels to get them to run perfectly straight and true on a grinder. And I did use a grinder this time, which I don't think I did when I initially first tried doing it. I think I used a Kansu sewing machine motor like we use on the Harbor Freight conversions. And that was just a nightmare because I was trying to convert metric arbors over to a big giant 1/2-inch hole that you see in most of these convex wheels. And it just didn't work well. They wobbled. I had a hard time lining up the knife, and it just wasn't good. So here it was, a couple of years later, and I decided to revisit it, added a few different things, and used a real grinder, got better arbor couplings, and added spherical washers to that. All of a sudden, wow, this 220 grit, convexed wheel I had was running beautifully straight. I grabbed a couple old serrated knives that did need refurbishing, cut them, and then I actually used my method of the split belt to deburr them and just finish them off, and they came out beautiful. You know, Cliff always uses like Scotch-Brite wheels. Another thing that I even mentioned in the video that I've never had a huge love affair with. I don't love Scotch-Brite wheels. I like Scotch-Brite belts, but it's the same thing. It's one of those things that I've always had trouble with getting them to run straight. I also don't have a lot of room in here for a huge line of grinders. If you ever see Cliff's shop, like he's got, grinder. He's got a whole row of them there. And I have some room for some grinders, but not a whole lot of them. And I don't get so many serrated knives that need refurbishing that I wanted to have, an entire row of grinders for that specific purpose. I couldn't deny, like, hey, this worked. So that's why I did the video. And I went back and said, hey, a lot of people bugged me. They said, this works. What do you think of it? And I said, you know what? I'm going to go revisit it. I tried it and I got it to work. So now I do both. I still use my method on knives that don't need refurbishing. And I'll call it Cliff's method on knives that, that do need refurbishing. And it's cool to always, be open to change, be open to new methods, be open to new equipment. That's always cool too. And one thing I will tell you about that I have on the way. So here's some things that are in the works. So let me tell you about some things in the works. I got a thing going with TS Prof soon for a giveaway that's going to be coming up in April. So that'll be very cool. I have a CBN manufacturer from the Ukraine who is sending me a wheel to test out. They are a very good and very reputable manufacturer of CBN wheels. They are wanting to get into making Tormek wheels. They are sending me a wheel that they made for Tormek. So that's pretty cool. I think they sent me, I think they said it was 340, 350 grit, somewhere in that range. And that should be getting here also like first week of April. So I'll start testing that out. I also purchased a wheel that is designed to do serrated knives on Tormek machines, a new thing, which I always thought was cool. And it does exist, and that's coming. 2 wheels, and I will see how that goes, and we'll test that out, and we'll compare that too, because we got our Tormek sharpeners out there, and some guys are just 100% Tormek. So I'm going to test that out. We'll see how that goes. That's really cool. That's another thing that's coming. The microscope manufacturer guy has been hitting me up again. I do have to reach back out to them because they have a new microscope. That one I've been kind of holding off on a little bit. And what else? Is there anything else? I think that just about covers it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else, but so I guess I will kind of wrap this up. Yeah, we're at 43 minutes and I will have to edit it down, which will probably be around 40 minutes. So I hope you guys got something out of this, and that's how things are going here in the shop. And I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm happy with the way things are going, and I hope you guys are doing great. I hope your businesses are going well. I hope you are pursuing your sharpening careers and making it be whatever that you want it to be. And however you do it is fine. Oh, I didn't tell you this, but I will bring it up. And I do want to say congratulations to Vinny. He has a baby coming. I think it's next month. He said to me, he's so busy. He's like, Paul, what do I do? I got a baby coming, and he's like, I spend a lot of time sharpening. And I told him, I said, hey, Vinny, last year I took a month and a half off to move. And I also had surgery on my hand and was out for about 3 or 4 weeks with that too. And I said, you know what? The minute I opened back up, all my customers were back. So be straight up front with it. Put it on your website. Hey, wife's having a baby. I'm taking a month off. Sorry. They'll be there. Don't worry about it. Your customers will come back to you. They will be happy for you that you are having the baby. And so congratulations, Vinny, to you and your wife. I think that's great. And I'm glad your business is doing so well out there in Nevada. And that's it for now. So I'm going to wrap up. I hope everyone's doing well. Keep an eye out for those things that I mentioned. Oh, I do have 2 microscopes that I have to give away too. So the last time I did that, the deal I made with them was I would do the review, but I wanted one to give away, and they actually sent me two. So one is the one I used for the review, so it was used, but it was literally only used to do the review. And the other one is brand spanking new. So I'll be giving away 2 digital microscopes to 2 lucky followers of the channel. Oh, and also, how did I forget? A big thank you to everybody. We have broken 15,000 subscribers. So that's a pretty big milestone, at least in my opinion. And I thank you all for that, for subscribing to the channel and following everything. It's pretty cool. If you had asked me a couple years ago when I started the YouTube channel, which I think was in 2022, if I have the date correct, that I would one day have 15,000 followers for knife sharpening and eventual laser engraving, I would have said no. I would have thought I would have maybe a couple hundred people. So very cool. Thank you for all of you that have followed the channel all this time and all the new people coming in. I will catch you all later. So this podcast is coming to an end. Have a great day out there, everyone. If you have questions, ideas, things you want to see discussed on future podcasts, please put them in the comments section. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do like and subscribe. On a lot of my videos, and I will just mention this, I do post affiliate links. Many of you are fantastic and always try and buy through the links and things that I do. Every little bit of that helps, guys. It helps me bring in new gear in the shop. It helps me fund some of this stuff. Anytime you guys do that and buy through those links, it doesn't cost you any more. It's actually the same exact price. Every little bit, it helps, So I do have a new piece of gear to share with everyone. I will warn you, this thing was expensive. If you're a brand newbie to sharpening, don't think you need to go out and get one of these. You don't. This is for the guys that are established. You're doing well. You want to speed things up in the cleaning, polishing area. I will show you very soon my new piece of equipment. But again, I just want to caveat that with, don't feel you have to go out and buy this right away if you are just starting out and you're just struggling to get money together to get a 1x30. This is not for guys coming right out of the gate, just getting started. I'll end that with this one comment, and I try and stress this, and everybody's in different circumstances. You do have, guys that are retired, leaving one career, and they got money and they want to get a bunch of gear, and that's cool. Totally cool with that too. If you got, a couple thousand and you want to spend it on getting your sharpening shop going, that's fine. I built mine a little bit at a time. I didn't go out and spend a whole bunch of money. Almost every business that I have had, and I've had several, I have built them with the funds generated from that business, minus a little bit here and there. So I know when I started my knife sharpening business, I put $1,200 into a Wicked Edge. And I said, I'm not spending any money till I've paid that off. Now, I was lucky. I've told the story before. I paid it off in weeks, and then ended up buying a Tormek machine and then realizing that wasn't fast enough too. Fortunately, paid that off relatively quickly and got more gear. And that's how my entire business has gone from Jump Street, adding more and more gear. And that's what I try and do for you new guys, is to point you in the right direction of starting with the right gear. And I'll just say it in this podcast too, just so you hear it. Start with a 1x30. It's the least expensive. It's the easiest to do. It's easy to learn, and it gives you fantastic results. That's where you want to start. Then build from there. Then you can add on from there. Don't do like I did. Don't start with a hand sharpener. I love them. I love that I have 3 TS Profs in my shop. I absolutely love them. They are amazing machines. Don't start with the TS Prof. If you are just super into sharpening your own knives, if you want to sharpen your own home kitchen knives and you want to do it by hand and you don't want to use any electric gear, then the TS Prof is where I would point you at, because they are awesome. But if you're starting a sharpening business, they are not where you want to be. It's nice to have. There's plenty of circumstances where I go to that and use it, but it is not the majority of the time. So once again, those are for collectors of knives that want to sharpen their own knives. If you want a business, you need to be looking at different gear. All right, that's it. I'm shutting up now. I got everything that I can think of bouncing around in my head on this, and have a great day. I'm shutting up. Bye, everyone.